So back in lesson 2.2, in example 2, we're going to practice using a graphing calculator to graph functions. So use your graphing calculator and set your window. Remember, that's going to be your second key across that top line. And you want to go in there and you want to set, this is going to be your x values. So your x min is going to be -2. Your x max is going to be 2. And so then these are going to be your y values. So this would be your y min will be -1 and your y max will be 3. Sadly, I don't have my graphing calculator with me. It's at the office, so the best I can do is talk you through it. We're going to graph these three graphs together. Over on this one, we're going to pretend like this is our screen on our graphing calculator. So since we've got it set to -2 to +2 on the x values, I'm using green lines for, this is going to be 1, and this would be a -1, so this would be -1 down here. Here's 1, here's 2, and here's 3. And so we're just going to pretend like this is our screen on our graphing calculator. And so when we graph the line, we're going to put in, remember the key's going to be on the top left-hand side, hit the y1, and then put in x squared. So when we do that, and we can go ahead and put in, and now go down a line, put in x to the 4th, go down a line and put in x to the 6th. And so remember, you're going to, for your putting that in there, you're going to use x, let's say for x to the 4th, you use x housetop 4. And then that'll put in x to the 4th. And for x to the 6th, you'll use x housetop 6, and that'll make it x to the 6th. So now let's go ahead and hit the graph key, which will be on the far right-hand side of the upper keys there right under the screen. And hit the graph key, and it will graph that. And you'll see three functions graphed there on your calculator. Now when we're trying to transfer it from our calculator over to our paper, how are you going to go about that? Well, for one, you can use the key that says trace, and you can get specific values. Now pay attention, if you've got a color graphing calculator, a color screen, then you can pay attention to what color the x equals at the bottom of the screen is showing. It'll say x equals something, and what color the y equals is that it has at the bottom of the screen. That'll let you know which one of your lines that you're dealing with, which one they're trying to trace for you. But for example, we can just use the arrow keys to go across there if we wanted to. They're all going to go through 0, 0. So when x is 0, they're all going to be 0. And they're all going to go through 1, 1, because when we take 1 and raise it to any power, we still get 1. So they're all going through 1, 1. They'll all go through -1, 1 also, since when we raise -1 to a even power, we still get 1. It gets a little trickier in between, but if we look at, let's just go to 1/2. So if this is 1, then this is halfway between there. So this is 1/2. Take 1/2 and square it, so that's going to be 1/4. So that's going to come in right about so. And we'll just connect those and keep going like that. So let's go on to the end of our screen. And so this is going to be y1. And so it'll mirror over here. So we're going to go about to 1/4 on this side, connect the dots, and follow along to the edge of the screen. So here's y1 on that side. And now let's use a different color for the next line. So we can use, say, green for y2. So y2 will be green. And so when we get to 1/2 on y2 and we take that to the 4th power, that's 1/16. So that's just barely above the 0, barely above the x-axis. But we're still going to go through here. So now we're going straighter up as we head up. We're angling up more sharply on y2. So we're going to do this same thing over here. Come through. It's going to be flatter, but it's going to come up more sharply now. So this would be y2 on that side. And now we can use purple for y3. So when we take 1/2 to the 6th power, that's going to be 1/64. That guy's barely above the x-axis, which means that he hits 1 and goes even straighter up, up at an even sharper angle there. And so then same thing over here. So we're going to go through and come up, and there we go. So here's y3 in purple. So y3 is purple over there. So now if we were to attempt to graph the other lines over here, down below, it says now graph for D and that should have been E, and that should have been F. So there's some little typos right there, D, E, and F. If we were to attempt to graph x1, y1 is x1, y2 is x3, and y3 is x5. So now go back into your y equals and go in there and change each one of them. You're going to have to erase the first one to make it just x. So x1 means x, right? y1 equals x. So you're going to put that in there for the first line, and then make your 2, or your 4 that was on y2 before, make that into a 3, and then on y3 make it from a 6 into a 5. So when we graph these, now we're going to find that they're all going to go through 1, 1 again. This time they're all going to pass through -1, -1. So the first one, the y1 equals x, is going to look like a straight line. So that one's just going to look like this. Here's our y1, I'm sorry, y1 for this new graph over here. And then our next one, x cubed. So this time, if we take 1/2 and cube it, then we're going to get 1/8. So it's going to be about down here, and then it's going to go up and catch through here, and then it's going to go on up from there. So it's going to look about like so, and then we're going to, on the -1/2, it's going to be -1/8, and so it'll be about right here, and then we'll move on up like so. And now let's consider when we raise it to the 5th power, and we'll use purple for that. And so now when we take 1/2 and we raise that to the 5th power, and so now that's going to be 1/32. So again, real close to 0. And then as we come up and move through here, now we're going to go up more sharply, so it'll be straighter. So here's my y3 over here. Green line again was my y2, just like it was on that first one. And so on this side, again, really close to the x-axis as we're on the negative side, and then it'll straighten out and head up. And so here's y3 over here, and of course this was y2 over there. So what do we notice? Let's look at both of these since we have them side by side. Do you see a pattern when we're graphing what we call the power function? The power function is y equals x to the n. So y is, or we would say, if we use function notation, we would say f of x is x to the n. So that's going to be our power function right here. And so do you see a pattern? Notice over here, they're all staying in quadrants 1 and 2. They're all at all times they stay above the x-axis. They're staying where we've got positive y values. That's whenever our exponent is going to be even, because when we raise a negative number to an even power, it stays positive. When we come over here and we're using odd numbers for our exponents, now we're going to end up in quadrant 1 and quadrant 3. And so over here, turns out we've got even functions. Over here, when we've got odd numbers on our exponents, then we end up with odd functions in this case. Now that does not always happen if we've got other things added to it, but when it's just the power function, then n is going to help us to know whether it's going to be similar to x cubed, y equals x cubed, as in this case. When it's x to the 1, it's just straightening it out, right? But all the rest of the times it kind of flattens it out as our exponent gets bigger. And over here, they're similar to y equals x squared.